sick of your beard feeling like sandpaper? Can you not find the right beard oil? Well, go visit my good friend Jason over at the Beard Guy and Friends for all your beardly needs. So about 20 years after Hernando de Soto came through the area in the 1540s, Tristan de Luna, who was a veteran of the Coronado expedition in the west, was appointed to establish a town at Ochuse in Pensacola Bay. He was to open roads from the Mississippian Coosa chiefdom in northern Georgia to Santa Elena in South Carolina. The Spanish fleet anchored in Pensacola Bay in August of 1559, and about a week later a hurricane destroyed most of the ships, tools, supplies, and food. Now the colonists did manage to make out a living in the Bay Area, but by February they had been forced to move north to the Mississippian town of Nana Picana on the lower Alabama River. When they arrived, the people of Nana Picana had apparently abandoned their towns and destroyed their food supplies on the way out. By April 15th, De Luna, who was again desperate for food, sent Mateo del Sol and about 150 men to follow the Alabama River northwest to try and reach Santa Elena. The army consisted of 2 friars, 40 cavalry, 100 infantry, and a translator who was a woman taken from Coosa by the De Soto expedition about 20 years earlier. De Soto reported an abundance of food in Coosa, and Luna hoped that Sol would also find food there. A few men of Coosa complained to Del Sol that their former vassals, the Napoche, who lived near the Tennessee River, was not sending them tribute. So the Coosa suggested that the Spanish might receive more food if the Napoche became Coosa vassals again. Del Sol reluctantly consented to a combined Spanish-Coosa attack against the Napoche, and about August the 21st, 25 Spanish cavalry and 25 infantry, in addition to some 300 Coosa warriors, advanced north and west towards the Napoche province. The Coosa Spanish force stormed the first Napoche town they encountered, was abandoned. The Napoches from here, as well as the second Tennessee River town, had already crossed to the other side of the river earlier in the day. Outraged, the Spanish and the Coosa pursued the Napoche, who escaped to a nearby island, which was potentially Chattanooga Island. Outnumbered, the Napoches pursued for peace, consenting to become Coosa vassals again, and renewing their deliveries of game, fruits, and nuts 3 times a year. Del Sol's expedition and the Coosa warriors left the Tennessee Valley Napoche towns at the end of August 1560 and returned to Coosa. In September of 1560, the relief ship that had been promised in the spring had not arrived, and the colonists were becoming desperate after their attempts to plant crops had failed. De Luna ordered the remainder of his force to march to the native town of Coca, and the men mutinied. This almost caused severe bloodshed, which was only averted by the intervention of the missionaries. After word had gotten back to Mexico on the miserable conditions at De Luna's camp facing the colonists, the Spanish viceroy had ordered Angel del Villafane to set sail and assume command of the expedition when he arrived at De Luna's camps. De Villafane set off for Santa Elena with 230 people, leaving 50 behind at Ochuse. On the way there, they were struck by a hurricane. Some of the ships survived. After reaching Santa Elena, shortly thereafter he set off for Hispaniola and then set off for Havana, Cuba. Upon reaching Havana, Cuba, most of his soldiers scattered across the land. Now, after about 3 or 4 months, he did return to Ochuse to retrieve the 50 men he had left behind. De Luna would become the governor of Yucatan in the mid-1560s and would hold this position until his death in 1571. The area would not again be populated by Europeans until around 1700, when the Spanish founded the city of Pensacola. Even though his expedition failed, and De Luna was relieved of duty and ordered to report back to the King of Spain, he is still credited with establishing Pensacola, Florida, which is one of the earliest European settlements within the present-day United States.